beauty, welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, August 23rd. I'm here to do my Friday Reads video. I didn't post a Friday Reads video last week because I was away at camp and did not have access to internet. But on Monday or Tuesday this week, I posted a video where I looked back on my goals for the month, my 31 books in 31 days goal specifically, and talked about some of the books that I have read and whether or not I can realistically still make that goal. So I'll link that video in the description box down below. If you haven't watched it yet, you might want to watch me ramble on about my goals. But I'm here to talk about the books that I have finished so far this week and the books that I'm currently reading and maybe on track to finish before the end of this week. I finished these 4 books so far this week, and I think I have 2 more that I will finish before the end of this day, so I'll mention those as well. The first book that I finished this week is Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. This is translated fiction for Women in Translation Month, because August, Women in Translation Month. The author is from Argentina, so this was translated from the Spanish by Megan McDowell. And this one is magical realism. It follows 2 young mothers, and when we meet the main character, the narrator, her name is Amanda, and she's dying. She's lying on a hospital bed dying, and she's interacting with the voice of her neighbor's son, who over the course of the novel we are kind of introduced to why there's a connection between this young mother and her neighbor's son. Because for most of the story, the woman, the main character, is focused on saving her own child. She's calculated what she considers to be the rescue distance, some perimeter within which if her daughter is that close to her, she'll be able to save her from whatever happens. But ironically, she's not able to save her daughter when things happen, because sometimes there are forces that are at work that no matter how close you are to someone physically, you're still not able to overcome those other forces. And so this is a book that explores environmental influences and the limitations that we have, no matter how much we think we're in control of our environment. What prevents us from doing what we think that we can do. This was also a political read because it discusses pollution and contamination and the effect that it has on humanity, as well as it contrasts the difference between pharmaceutical intervention and primitive medicine, I suppose. This was also a really short read, just about 180 pages or so, and so that was the first book that I finished this week. I also finished another book for Women in Translation Month. This is Hollow Heart by Viola de Grado. This is translated from the Italian by Anthony Sugar. This was also a very strange read because this was a woman narrating her own suicide as well as what happens to her after she dies. And she discusses the connection that she has with the environment, with the world around her as her body starts to disintegrate on her death. But she's not just narrating her afterlife, she's also revisiting moments in her former life. And so there are flashbacks to her childhood as she tries to understand how she got to the place where at age 25 she killed herself. And what I liked about this book was that the main character, Dorothea, when she was a child, she received an encyclopedia from a relative, and she learned about science and about anatomy, and those are some of the concepts that she fixates on throughout her life. And even as she dies, she's still thinking about her anatomy and how her anatomy is changing on death. Things that I didn't like about the book was how repulsive this main character was, in that she consciously decides to end her life and end her connection with life by committing suicide, but it's as though she wanted to navigate between the 2 worlds, because now that she has killed herself, she still wants to have influence on and have relationship with people who are still alive, and she doesn't seem to want to respect the boundaries that she has put around her by killing herself. So this main character, she really bothered me, and I suppose because of that, I mean, the plot for this book is not one that I would say that I could ever see myself enjoying, but the main character's decisions, I think, made it that much more repulsive to me. So I don't think that my rating of this book is really about the book itself, but just about my enjoyment. And so I gave this a pretty low rating, maybe a 2-star, just because I didn't love it, not because the book wasn't well written. In fact, it has very glowing reviews, but I didn't enjoy it. So for me, this was not a good read. The next book that I finished is State of Lies by Siri Mitchell, and I like this book a lot. This is mystery, suspense, political drama, relationship. This book has a little bit of everything. Science, some feminism. Main character in this one is a physicist. She's married, she has a son, they're living in Washington, D.C. Her parents are also politically motivated, and her husband is a military vet, and now he's working in Washington, so he's working in a political circle. But very early in the story, he is killed in a motor vehicle accident. And as the novel moves forward, Georgie tries to investigate whether her husband was accidentally killed or deliberately murdered. Added to that is the fact that Georgie is a scientist, and she thinks in science concepts and terms. And so the novel, the narrative, her thought process is peppered by her scientific background. I thought that that was very interesting. Added to that, the fact that she has pursued a life in a almost unconventional atmosphere for women means that she is very strong, very capable in other parts of her life. And I really like the feminist attitudes that the author brought out in this book. So for me, this was a really good read. I gave this a high rating, maybe a 4-star, and I got an ARC from the publisher to review. This is from Thomas Nelson Publishing, and I recommend this highly. I don't think I love the cover as much, but I like the book. I love the content. Have no hesitation in recommending that book to you. And then the last book that I finished so far this week is my Book of the Month Club pick, Ruth Ware's The Turn of the Key. Brand new release, and I couldn't wait to read it. I like this one a lot more than I expected to, so this was a good surprise for me. The main character in this one has been working as a nanny, and a crime has been committed. Someone has died at the house where she was working, and she's been accused of murder. So she's in jail, and she's writing a letter to a lawyer asking him to represent her, not giving her name right away because the case has been discussed publicly, and she wants this lawyer to understand all the details about the case before she reveals too much personal details. And so this book takes the form of a letter where this main character is explaining her process, how she got into the house, how she started working for this family, some of the challenges that she had, and her version of what happened at the end that caused her to be in jail. So while we do get a mostly one-sided version of this story that's happening, it is such an interesting rendition. And one of the issues that I've had with Ruth Ware books before is how she resolves and how she explains what has happened in the story at the end of the story, because this is mystery suspense, you know, she can't reveal too much of the story while it's going on. But I thought she did a good job of wrapping up some of those plot points at the end. And I like this a lot. It's set in Scotland in a Victorian house. So we get mentions of supernatural activity because the house that this book is set in is said to be haunted. But we also get discussion as a contrast of science, because one of the previous inhabitants was a scientist and a botanist. And also because the house is wired for smart technology. And so there's the contrast and comparison between old and new. And we get that throughout the story. And I liked a lot of the elements that the author incorporated in this book. So I read 4 books this week, and I liked 3 of them. Not a bad week for me in terms of reading. Other books that I started this week include Greed by Elfriede Jelinek, I got about 30 pages into this one, but I stopped because it was too similar to something else that I was reading. I can't remember what right now. And so I put this one on pause. I'll get back to it. This is also a Women in Translation book. This is a Nobel Prize winning novelist, and this is translated from the original German. The translator is Martin Chalmers or Calmers. And I will get back to this at some point because I was interested in the story, but I can't remember what it's about now, so I'm going to have to start over. No problem. 30 pages in, I don't mind going back. I also started Loving the New Millennium by Kan Shu. This is translated from Chinese by Annalise Finnegan Wasmoen, and this was longlisted for the Man Booker International Prize. The author is from China. I haven't seen a book from China on the Man Booker International list for a while, I don't think. But I chose this one for Women in Translation Month. The description says that this is a novel, but there are 11 stories in this book. I'm finding the writing to include very vivid descriptions of these relationships, and I'm enjoying it so far. I want to get back to it. I am hoping to finish it over the weekend. Kan Shu, Loving the New Millennium, another book for Women in Translation Month. I'm also continuing to read A House for Mr Biswas by V.S. Naipaul. I've been reading this one slowly because I've been enjoying the book so much. I read a few pages every day and I almost don't want this story to be over. A House for Mr Biswas is a great story. V.S. Naipaul is an expert novelist in that he represents very well the uniqueness of the culture in Trinidad, where he has these the main character and his family are of Indo-Aryan descent. They would be the children of the Indians who came from Asia to the West Indies to work as indentured servants, and then establish lives and establish families in the West Indies and never left. And so we have the situation where these children of these Indians, they want to preserve their unique identity, but they also want to try to assimilate and integrate into the current society only as far as it serves their own purposes. And so they send their children to Roman Catholic schools to be educated, but they expect that when they come home, they will continue their religious education and serve in the Hindu traditions of their household. So Naipaul himself, being of this cultural background, does a really good job of representing the uniqueness of this identity, as well as some of the tensions that would develop within relationships, within households, within families, where people criticize other members of their families for maybe going too far into their relationship with the outside community. I think he explores that really well in this book. Another thing that I really enjoy about this story is the exploration of house, because Mr. Biswas is kind of a representative of the country itself. And what does it mean to have a house? What does it mean to have a home? And so the author presents a lot of different houses, a lot of different structures that serve as a house or a home. And what are some of the compromises that the main character has to make? What are some of the challenges that he faces in trying to obtain a house for himself, for his children, for his family, and what that means for him, what that means for the people around him. This is such a really good book. Everyone should read this. I should finish reading this. I'm about halfway in and I'm loving it. So this is a book that I'm going to probably be continuing until the end of the month. I'm really in no rush to finish it right away, but I'm enjoying it. I'm also rereading The Siege of Krishnapur by J.G. Farrell. This is a previous Man Booker winner from 1974. I read this one earlier this year and didn't make notes for my review. And you know, I've been trying to review all the books, trying to read and review all the books that have won the Man Booker Prize in its history. So I need to make a video for this one. So I need to reread the books so I can have notes for the videos. So that's what I'm reading today. I just started. So I might not need to reread the whole thing. I might just get to the point where I remember everything that I read 6 months ago and be ready to discuss it with you. But for now, I'm rereading this one. So this is my current read. and I'll talk more about it in my video, which I'll probably be posting sometime over the weekend. So these are the 4 books that I'm currently reading. These 2 are Women in Translation, and this one is a reread, and this one is I don't know when I'm gonna finish reading. So these are the 4 books that I am currently reading, and then the 4 books that I finished reading. So this is my Friday reads. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you've been reading this week. If you are having a really good reading week, what is the best book that you've read so far this week? And for me, my favorite book so far this week is State of Lies by Siri Mitchell. This book surprised me. The fact that it was an ARC that I got from the publisher, I really didn't know what to expect about it, but I really enjoyed all the different elements that the author brought out in this book. The political corruption and the political intrigue was surprising, but it was a pleasant surprise. All of these were pleasant surprise. This was also a really pleasant surprise. So I'm saying this is my highest rated book of the week, followed by this one, and I liked this one, and I didn't like this one. So that's my Friday Reads video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'll be back tomorrow with another video because I'm trying to post a video every day for the rest of this month. So let's talk in the comments, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.